It's time to crack SA 610. Hey, hi everyone, this is Ravi Agarwal and we were enjoying 600 series, that is 600, 610, 620. You need to know only AIE. A using the work of another auditor. I using the work of internal auditor. E using the work of auditor's expert. 600, 610 and 620. So time to crack 610 using the work of internal auditor. I. Okay, so you are here using the work of internal auditor. Okay, so here in the entire essay you are going to see two things: using the work of internal auditor or using internal auditor for direct assistance. I'm going to explain both. So let's understand what is the objective of essay 610 here. Okay, so what is the objective of internal auditor? Number one, whether the work of internal audit function and direct assistance from internal auditor can be used, and if it can be used in what area and up to what extent. So simple, now you are going to use the work of internal auditor. You got to check whether you can use the work of internal auditor or direct assistance from internal auditor. You can take whether I can use it, and if yes, I can use it into what area and up to what extent. One. Second objective, okay, if using the work of internal audit function, whether the work is adequate for my purpose of audit or not. I'll check it. I'm external auditor. I want to use the work of internal auditor. I need to check the objective of essay 610. Okay, so first is see whether you can use it work, and if you can use it, which area and up to what extent. Number one. Number two, if you can use the work, so check whether the work is adequate for my purpose of audit. Third, if using the internal auditor direct assistant, then if you are using internal auditor direct assistance, then direct him, then direct internal auditor, direct supervise, review their work. Simple. Three objective. One, okay, whether the work of internal audit function or direct assistance from internal audit can be used, and if it can be used in what area and up to what extent. Number one, whether the work is adequate for the purpose of audit. Number two. Number three, if you are using his direct assistance, then you got to direct him, you got to supervise him, you got to review their work. Who am I? External auditor. What I'm going to do? Whom I'm going to direct, supervise, review? Internal auditor. Now let's quickly understand few definition. Okay, two definition. Internal audit function. What is it? Direct assistance. People generally get confused in direct assistance. You're going to understand it directly. It will go in your head and you will never ever forget. Challenge. Okay, so internal audit function. See what happened here. Using the work of internal auditor. What is the internal audit function? It's a function of an entity, okay? It's a function of an entity that perform two things: assurance and consulting activity. So it gives, basically what it does assurance and consulting activity. It is designed to evaluate and improve effectiveness of GRC. What? GRC. G is governance, R is risk management, C is internal control. So it's basically just nothing. It's just function of entity where you do what? Where you do assurance, okay, and consulting activities. All right. Why I do this? So that I can evaluate, I can improve the effectiveness of entities governance, G, entities risk management, R, entities internal control. Oh, it's so simple. It's just nothing. It's just a function of entity where I just perform assurance, consulting activity, so that I can evaluate, I can improve effectiveness of entity GRC. Done. Next, direct assistance. See, in the entire chapter there are two things: using the work of internal auditor. Here you are not using internal auditor, no, you are using the work of internal auditor. This is a one concept. Second, you are direct assistance. So here you are not using the work of internal auditor, here you are using internal auditor itself. Mind it, people, they do not understand. See, two concept: using the work of internal auditor, that's internal audit function, you're using the work, and second is direct assistant. In internal auditor, there you simply use the work of internal auditor, right? And second, direct assistant, you use the internal auditor directly, right? You direct internal auditor. Understand? Direct assistant. Use of internal auditor, not using the work of internal auditor. So easy, yeah, I love it. Okay, use of internal, see the word, use of internal auditor to perform audit procedure under my direction, my supervision, my review. You got the things clear? Where it is written using the work of internal auditor, there you are using the work of internal auditor. But in direct assistant, it does not happen that way. Here you use internal auditor itself. Use of internal auditor to perform audit procedure under direction, supervision, review of external auditor. Is it crystal clear? Yeah. So where this standard is not applicable, Understand where this 610 is not applicable. So simple, you know this already. See this, where this standard is not applicable, it does not apply, doesn't have entity who doesn't have internal audit function. So how will this apply? Because here you are using the work of internal auditor, but entity does not have internal audit function. How will it apply? One. Second, okay, internal audit function is not relevant to audit. This internal audit function is not relevant to audit. So here it will not apply. So where this standard is not applicable, two common point where this entity does not have internal audit function. Second, internal audit function is not relevant. Now next, using the work. Listen, if external auditor does not expect to use the work of, it does not expect to use the work of internal audit function, not apply here. Second, listen, external auditor does not plan to use auditor direct assistance, right? So it does not see what happened to simple 5 cases where the standard is not going to apply. Where number one, where this entity does not have internal audit function, will not apply. Where internal audit function is not relevant to audit, not apply. SS 610. And then using the work, see here external auditor doesn't expect to use the work of internal audit function, it will not apply. And then if external auditor does not plan to use internal auditor direct assistant, there also it will not apply. And where law and regulation prohibit or restrict to use the work of internal auditor. Cool. Next, relationship with SA 315. Do you remember SA 315? What was that? Tell me, what is SA 315? Identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding entity and its environment. So here you identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding entity and its environment. So relationship between 610 and 600 and 315. Understand? Many entities establish internal audit function as an integral part of internal control and governance. Definitely. So the objective, scope, responsibility, status of internal function depends upon obviously the size of the entity and the requirement of management TCWG. Now see the relation. Understand? Focus, right? So 315, what happened? 315 basically addresses how the knowledge, okay, how the knowledge and experience of how can I use the knowledge and experience of internal audit function so that it can inform me about the understanding of entity and its environment and identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement. That was the topic in SA 315. Identify and assessment of risk of material misstatement through understanding entity and its environment. So what will happen as per 610? This internal audit function, they will, because they are there in the entity itself, so they will simply inform me what knowledge they are having. So there it builds a relationship. You got my point. Second, last, to gain knowledge of internal audit function, external auditor has to understand. See, I want to gain the knowledge of internal audit function. So external auditor will understand 3 things simply. Okay, they'll just check the objectivity of internal auditor. Okay, understand? Check the objectivity. See the competence of internal auditor, and then lastly, check whether internal audit function applies systematic and discipline approach. So simple. What are we studying? Can you please tell me? 610, using the work of internal auditor. Okay, then objective. So 3 simple objective. If you want to use the work of internal audit function or direct assistance from internal auditor, just check if I can use, or if yes, in which area and up to what extent. If using the work of internal function, whether the work is adequate for the purpose of audit. Okay, if using the work of internal auditor direct assistant, then direct supervise and review the work. Okay, 2 simple definition internal audit function. See, what happened here is the function of entity where you perform assurance and consulting activity designed to evaluate and improve effectiveness of GRC. Direct assistant, simple. Here you use the work of internal auditor. No, here you directly use internal auditor. Use of internal auditor to perform audit procedure under direction, supervision, review of external auditor. Non-applicability of this standard. Oh, where is this not applicable? Let me tell you. It's not applicable where entity does not have internal audit function. It's not applicable where entity is not relevant. The internal audit function is not relevant to audit. Okay, external auditor does not expect, and then using the work. External auditor does not expect to use the work of internal audit function. Okay, if external auditor does not plan to use direct assistance of internal auditor. And lastly, law and regulation does not allow, restrict. Okay, relationships, I told you, so simple that you gain the knowledge, experience of internal audit function so that it can inform you about external auditor understanding of entity and its environment and identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement. Now the next is requirement of 610. What is the requirement of 610? Can you tell me? So simple. It says using the work of internal auditor. You want to use the work of internal auditor, you have to check 3 things. You already know. Objectivity of internal auditor. Go and check. You want to use the work of internal auditor. Go and check. What? Objectivity of internal auditor. Okay. Next, check the competence of internal auditor also. Okay, if he is a professional, if he is a chartered accountant, do I need to check? No, then he's competent. Okay, what else I have to check? And lastly, whether internal audit function applies systematic and disciplined approach. If you want to use the work of internal auditor, you have to check three things: objectivity of internal auditor, competence of internal auditor, whether the internal and internal audit function applies systematic and disciplined approach. Then I have few notes. See, I hope you guys are following Auditpedia 2.0. You must follow. It's a fabulous book. Took me years to make it, but now it's for you. Alright then, notes: procedure performed by external auditor to determine adequacy of work performed. See, what all procedure that you are going to perform, and external auditor going to perform, so that it can find out the adequacy of work performed by internal audit function. See, external auditor is going to make inquiries. Okay, external auditor is going to make inquiries from internal audit function. Observe procedure performed by internal audit function, and then review what? Internal audit function. So if you want to see the adequacy of the work, you got to make inquiry. All right, then I got to observe whatever audit procedure is performed during that internal audit function, and review the work of internal audit function. Got it? Then external auditor shall not use the work of internal auditor. Okay, you said when I can use the work. Now you're asking me when I cannot use the work. So just reverse the answer. No objectivity, no objectivity. Competence, lack of competence. You got to apply, whether he applies a systematic and disciplined approach. Reverse it. Does not apply systematic and. Oh my god, it's so interesting. Can I hear it once again? External auditor shall not use the work of internal auditor when, number one, no objectivity, lack of competence, does not apply systematic and discipline approach. Just 3 points. Alright. Next, external auditor shall use less work of internal auditor. Okay, it's telling just external auditor shall use less work of internal auditor and perform more directly. So it's so obvious when you are going to use less work of internal auditor, when more judgment is involved. Okay, where you should apply your brain. Now you are external auditor, where more judgment is involved. Correct? I will explain you later what is significant judgment. So where more judgment is involved, so there you should use less work of internal auditor. Next, where the assessed risk of material misstatement is high, where risk is high, risk of material misstatement, RMM is high, where status and objectivity of internal audit function is less. Okay, where areas where you think auditor will become biased. Okay, where you think the auditor is going to become biased, so here you should apply less work of internal auditor. Correct? And low level of competence. Okay, you got my point. So what I'm talking about, the external auditor is going to use less work of internal auditor where more judgment is involved, where more risk of material misstatements, where you think risk of material misstatement is high, where status and objectivity of internal function is less, where you think he'll be biased. Okay, low level of competence. Got it? Next question is using internal auditor direct assistance. Okay, now we talk about direct assistance. Now, what is direct assistance? Can you tell me? Are we going to use the work of internal auditor? No. Here I am going to use internal auditor directly. Use of internal auditor to perform audit procedure under direction, supervision, review of external auditor. So now the question here is using internal auditor direct assistance under direction, supervision, review of external auditor. Listen, external auditor has to determine whether direct assistance can be used. Okay, what he has to do? External auditor has to determine whether direct assistance can be used to use the work of internal auditor under direction, supervision, and review, and it is allowed when direct assistance is allowed. Is telling you, listen, it is not prohibited by law, number one, and there should be no significant threat to objectivity. Perfect. And he should be competent and should be capable. Who? Internal auditor, obviously. So got my point. So it's not prohibited by law, and there should be no significant threat objectivity to whom? Internal auditor, and this internal auditor should be competent and capable. Got it? Next, external auditors shall not use internal auditor direct assistance to perform procedure data. Okay, see, simple. It's telling you external auditor shall not use the work of internal auditor. External auditor shall not use the work of internal auditor to perform direct assistance when? To perform procedure data. What kind of procedure? When the procedure involve relevant judgment, significant judgment. When the question of significant judgment come, I'm not going to use his work. Number one. Number two, when you find that higher assessed risk of material misstatement, I'm not going to use his work in direct assistance. Work with which internal auditor has been involved. Oh my god, internal auditor is himself involved. I'm not going to use his work. So significant judgment is there. I'm not going to use his work. Higher assessed risk of material misstatement, I'm not going to use his work. Work with which external auditor is himself involved, I'm not going to use his work. And then you'll ask me a question that what is significant judgment? Can you tell me? See, Significant judgment includes like where you have to assess the risk of middle misstatement, where you have to evaluate the sufficiency of test performed, where you have to evaluate the appropriateness of management use of going concern, where you have to evaluate significant accounting estimate, where you have to evaluate adequacy of disclosure of financial statement. That is where you apply your significant judgment. You got to do documentation like we say it in every essay. So documentation shall be made with reference to internal audit function, TEDx assistance, and this way we are done with essay 610. I hope you loved it, and be ready for next essay. Signing off, your mentor CA Ravi Agarwal. Remember, AIE, using the work of, or using the work of. Tell me, what is AIE? A is using the work of another auditor. A, I using the work of internal auditor, and E using the work of auditors expert. To 600, 610, 620. See you for the next essay 620. Bye bye.